Hi, welcome to Thin Place Farm virtually. I'm Jason, and I'm going to be your tour guide for the next 15-ish minutes. And I'm really glad that you decided to join us. Stay tuned after the video. We're going to do a little Q&A. So hopefully we'll show you a little bit of everything, spark your interest, and then take questions at the end. So we're gonna walk up to the front and start with our berry patch. As we go, one of the things you'll see are these little Christmas trees. They're also known as a Norway spruce. And we planted these to give us, as they grow, obviously, protection from the wind, because we get really vicious high winds over here. And they also act as a pesticide drift. So there's a conventional orchard across the street that we're trying to create a buffer. And they're really beautiful to look at, so multi-function, something you'll hear a lot today. So this is our lawn, or what used to be a lawn, is now about a third of an acre of berries. One of the first berries that we have planted are Haskell, also known as the honeyberry. This is a really early variety of berries, a little similar to a blueberry but more tart. And we grow strawberries underneath for weed barrier, helps keep out the grasses, and it gives us a second harvest. And they're also beautiful to look at. Meredith and I, who, she's my wife, she's filming us today. We both work full time, so we've tried to plan everything out to be harvestable in a manageable way. So we have berries that start really early. We have blackberries that come in a little bit later than that. And we also grow some understory strawberries, same purpose. And then we grow raspberries, that come ready. These are ever-bearing variety, but they come available after the blackberries. And as we work our way down, the concept continues. We have red currants. We grow strawberries under those as well. So it's kind of hard to see, but we're starting to get our first currants of the season. So they're looking really nice and healthy. We have gooseberries, which is, they're kind of like a grape in texture and size, very delicious. Got some thorns, so you gotta be careful. So by mid-July, we have jostaberries coming to fruit and ripen. And jostaberry is a cross of a black currant and a gooseberry. So it has that delicious flavor of a black currant, but there's no thorns like the gooseberry. So these are a real gem. If you were fortunate enough to buy one from us in the spring, you're in for a treat. Next on the list of berries is a Ronia berry. Ronias are very astringent. They're good for jam, not so much fresh eating. The birds like them a lot, so we kind of leave them for the birds, gives them a little bit of something to eat on while we harvest the strawberries. And just for fun, we got a few different varieties of blueberry because we are in the blueberry capital of the world. If you can't beat them, join them a little bit. And we also have a variety of chestnut set off to the side. The rest of the chestnut trees, or one plot of them, is in the front yard. On this side, we have 4 or 5 chestnuts. We have our wood chip pile. This is really kind of our supply area, materials. We keep our farm stand up here, which is closed really for now. Hopefully we'll have some fruits that come available later in the season, but this is, a custom-made structure that we put together. It's mobile, and I think it turned out it's Meredith's favorite color. So it's real pretty. So as we move out of the front yard, just want to touch on a couple real quick things. We have some elderberry that we use for making syrup in the fall, but it also makes a great hedge plant. We also sell elderberries in the spring. A lot of people bought some from us this year. We have a little fun space for the kids, growing some apples and pears. They've got a fairy garden that the kids can kind of hang out. We just had a picnic there last week. It was nice. Here we're growing a hardy kiwi. This is something new for us, so hopefully it works out. We try to keep things local as well, so we source some white Atlantic cedar from Ed in Mullica. And I guess the last thing, even though I'm trying to keep it short, but there's always one more thing. But so we use wood chips. This is one example of where and how we use wood chips. And we're creating a hedgerow here for pollinators, overwintering habitat, and also some bounty. We'll get some snow. This is Siberian snow pea, so this is great fodder for like chickens, and it also fixes nitrogen. So we're coming through the gate. We have about 9 acres here. 4 of them are fenced off. And that gives us our primary harvest area, protected from deer. It also helps keep in our livestock guardian dogs, who we got a couple of them following me here. It's one of 3. And for some of those who know us, maybe we've become famous because of the big white dogs, but the fence doesn't always hold, and occasionally we have these guys roaming the Hamilton region. But they're really great, super friendly, they're great at their job. They protect the chickens and pigs and sheep and everyone, from aerial predators. And they're just a real joy to have. Over here is our small mushroom log patch that we have going. So we harvested those logs, oak and a maple, from our forest. And we're, hopefully come September, we'll have our first flush of shiitakes and oyster mushrooms. So we got some more wood chips, which is great entertainment for the kids, helps hold moisture, keeps back the weeds, builds soil. So really couldn't do what we're doing without the wood chips. They provide overwintering habitat for toads. It's just really, and it smells great when you get it fresh. So we're gonna go over here to the front of the orchard. Excuse me. So this weedy looking area is one of 2 of our pollinator habitats, so wildflower garden. We had a consultant from the NRCS, which is a division of the USDA, help us with a custom seed mix. Hopefully it comes out. We're going to give it a little bit more time. So yes, because we really need those insects for pollination, but we also need the insects that are, parasitic wasps and the ones that are going to help us as allies in combating, the harmful pests like codling moth and various beetles. So it's really important to have those type of niche habitats to help us along. This row here, so we're in the orchard. We have about, 250 trees planted in the ground right now. And it's very similar to the berry patch in the front, where we have 7 zones, and each zone's about 20 days. And so anything that'll grow within that time period, we've got cherries, bush cherry, apricot, you name it. And then as we move forward, starting to rain, the same thing happens. So we have fruit plants underneath. So we have, basically we're trying to mimic a long-term forest ecosystem. Trees are the most long-term sustainable means of sequestering carbon, producing food, and then we have shrub layer and then herbaceous layer. So we have different herbs planted, we have garlic. One of our challenges that we've had is eliminating this rhizomyzonal grass. So we're in the process of tilling strategically to exhaust the energy in the roots, and then in the interim, we're overseeding buckwheat to help outcompete the grass and also provide some nectar for the bees. So this is a little sample at the orchard. As we progress in the season, we have peaches, some apples, hazelnut, goumyberry. We're growing garlic, which is hard to see. It's kind of getting taken over by hairy vetch, but that's okay. So it's really been, the oldest tree is only about 3.5 years old, so we're really just starting to get some of our first fruits on the more mature trees. So we're a couple years out still from having a fully functional orchard. So during this time, we're really in the development phase, and it's trying to build up that balance of good and bad pests, and also creating those layers so that hopefully we'll have to not weed so much. And using different permaculture design principles, we're trying to make it less work as much as possible, and trying to be smart and creative and innovative about how to address things that are challenges. So a good example of that is this tree row here. So we've done a little bit different things under each row. So we have like strawberries under one tree row, and then this tree row we've planted a mix of like carrot, phacelia, a couple different types of clovers, and I think there were a couple other different mixes in the seed, but really the idea is to create things that are in bloom throughout the season, and also a place that beneficial insects can overwinter, so that when the ornamental fruit moth and the codling moth and those bad things start to emerge, their natural predators are already here and thriving. So, and it's also soil building. You can't just keep taking out without giving back. So that's really important. So we'll go down here and check out some of our poultry. One of the other things that we did is we planted every variety of fruit you could think of, but we did it in a way where, like, this pear tree doesn't touch another pear. We have a pear, a hazelnut, an apple, a peach, a black locust, which fixes nitrogen, and then finally another hazelnut. And then on either row it's the same thing, so nothing ever touches. So whatever pest likes peach really they have to work at finding the next peach. So it also gives us some time to identify a pest issue on a particular species of tree and then try to address it before it's widespread. One way we do that, so building soil, managing pest, and bounty. Those are the kind of the three things, and you can do those things through lots of different methods. So mulching, beneficial plantings of different species, and then animals. They also give fertilization, they give high quality protein, and they also control pests. So during the fall and winter, we let them rotate through the orchard, and they scratch up any kind of pests they're trying to overwinter. They drop their, they fertilize the soil, they poop, and then they get fed also. So these are some of our younger layers on a mobile coop, and we control them with poultry netting. This is another one of our mobile shelters. Actually, there's two of them. There's a sheep shelter on the one side of the fence, and this is the mobile coop that we modeled after Justin Rhodes. If you're not familiar with him, check him out. But these are our older laying birds. Um, you know, this kind of comes back to the idea of how to manage things in a way that requires the least amount of time and work for us as we can. So by being mobile, we don't have to worry about cleaning up after them and cleaning out hay. We just pull the coop. Our water, we use this type of water for all the animals. It's a 55-gallon drum with nipples, and that lets us fill up the water once a week, maybe more, maybe a little bit less depending on the animal, and we can just kind of set it and drop it and walk away. I know we're probably running up on our time, but just a couple more little things. We keep about 3, this is our second year doing pigs. They're a lot of fun. They also, just like everything else, they fertilize, they provide other resources such as protein, and they also are great workers. When we're trying to plant something in a place for the first time, you need to do a little bit of site work, super critical. Pigs are great workers. They love to till up things, they eat vegetation, they fertilize as they go. So here we have our 2 different batches of pigs. We have the older ones that are going to the butcher this weekend, and then the little pigs will be ready in September. So if you're interested, we can talk afterwards. But this is about 5 acres of forest. It's under a USDA stewardship plan. So we're stewards of that land, trying to ensure that we're controlling invasives, planting natives, being respectful of the wetlands and all the different creatures that live there, dragonflies, all kinds of things. So what we'll do is we'll walk through some of this pasture that we're trying to reseed. First, we ran the animals through it because the soil quality on this part of our property was just really not good prior to us moving here. And so what we've done is we've seeded this with a custom mix. Our ducks are helping with the fertilization process. They also eat grubs and many other pests. They lay great high quality jumbo sized eggs, and they're a ton of fun to watch. So hopefully we'll have some, we also will eat them when they have hatchlings. So this area is just being seeded. We keep like this brush pile here, and this helps create habitat for songbirds. It's a food source. It's I got 1, 2, 3, 4, I think 5 guinea hens laying on one nesting site. So it's a nesting site for birds, domestic and wild. Where guineas fall into that, I'm not sure. Hi, Lion. This is the area that we seeded first. You can see it's really starting to come in. We've got clover, a couple different cool season grasses. This would be great for the sheep. So what we'll do is we'll walk towards our 2 high tunnels. Right now we're growing loofahs in one and some annual vegetables. And in the other tunnel, we're growing 4 different varieties of raspberry. One of the other principles of permaculture is storing and capturing energy resources. And so we do that in a couple different ways too. So for the high tunnels, where it's passive solar, we also collect the rainwater that falls on them. Each one's over 2,000 square feet, so it's a tremendous amount of water when it falls onto that. It's bigger than a lot of people's houses. So we utilize a couple 300-gallon tanks, and the water fills into those. We have drip irrigation inside, and it mostly sustains itself. I mean, we do have to use a little bit of our own water, but it's pretty close. Utilizing space, we have a one of our larger asparagus beds in between the two tunnels because you can't really grow much else there. So another way we store and capture energy is through our solar array. When we bought that property and the house as a foreclosure, we changed everything over to electric, including our heat. So we're fortunate to have this generate all of our needs, for the year. It also doubles, as everything else, multiple functions. A shelter. So during the winter, we'll put some of the animals under here, gives them shade or protection from the snow and the wind. We also keep our tractor, our mower, things like that. We're gonna put some hammocks under there. The kids want to camp out. Does all kinds of great things. This is our apiary. We're kind of starting to expand that a little bit right now. We have 3 hives here. They're active. We have another hive over by another pollinator garden that we're developing. Last year we didn't have any honey. This year, if all goes well, because we don't use any chemicals, hopefully we'll have a lot of honey to share. So stay tuned for that. They're also a lot of fun. Even the kids like getting involved in checking the bees and watching them come in and out of the door. They're just a lot of fun. So I think that's close to everything. It's hard to see, but along here we have another interior windbreak because again the wind is intense. So we have persimmon, American persimmon, we have dogwood, we have eastern redbud, things that flower at different times of year and also allows overwintering. So I think that, like I said, that just about does it. We do have pawpaws, which I didn't mention. We made a little pawpaw grove. It's kind of fun. We've got 5 or 6 more younger pawpaws over here that kind of keep in a more slightly shaded area until they get larger. So these are some different varieties. If you never tried a pawpaw, I would suggest finding some. We won't have any for quite some time. But they're really delicious. And I think that's it. So we have many other things happening. There's Q&A afterwards. You want to talk about sheep, you want to talk about pigs, you want to talk about not mowing and the benefits of that. We'll be available and really appreciate the time. Hopefully you found it informative and not too long. All right, take care.